In the year 3000, humanity had achieved a peace unlike anything the universe had ever seen. For thousands of years, Earth had been a shining beacon of cooperation, with humans forging alliances with dozens of alien species. They had explored countless planets, shared knowledge, and expanded their reach across the stars. The great wars of the past were distant memories, long overshadowed by prosperity and peace. On Earth, technology, science, and society had flourished to unimaginable heights. People lived in harmony, and the universe seemed to be a place of endless possibility. But everything changed one fateful day when a new alien race appeared on the edges of human space. The Torvins. They were powerful, technologically advanced, and mysterious. Their ships, large and imposing, arrived without warning, their presence like a dark shadow hanging over the peaceful world that humanity had built. They sent a single message across every communication channel, reaching all human leaders, scientists, and citizens alike. "We challenge humanity," the message said. "Prove your worth to us, or be forgotten." The tone of the message was cold and unyielding, like a stone wall that offered no room for negotiation. The Torvins spoke of a series of trials, tests meant to determine if humanity was truly worthy of the peace they had enjoyed for so long. They did not explain why they had chosen this moment or why humanity had been singled out. All that was clear was that these trials would push humanity to its limits. The Earth's leaders, taken aback by this sudden challenge, struggled to make sense of it. How could this be happening? What had the Torvins seen in humanity that made them think we were no longer worthy of peace? Were they envious of the peace that had settled over the galaxy, or did they see something dangerous in humanity's future? The first reactions were fear and confusion. The idea that humanity might not be able to defend itself against such a powerful alien race was terrifying. But there were also whispers of hope among some. There were those who believed that the very qualities that made humanity unique, its creativity, adaptability, and determination, might be what could set it apart from other species. Perhaps, they thought, the Torvins had underestimated human potential. In the midst of the uncertainty, a special council was formed. It consisted of the world's best leaders, scientists, military strategists, and a few individuals from the many alien allies humanity had made throughout its history. Together, they would try to figure out a way to face this unknown enemy. One of the first decisions was to gather the brightest minds from around the world. Dr. Marla Soren, a leading scientist in alien technologies, was called to the council. She had worked alongside many alien species in the past, and her unique insights into their cultures and technologies made her one of the most respected humans in her field. Despite her achievements, Marla couldn't hide the fear she felt as she sat before the council, listening to the terms of the challenge. "This could change everything," Marla said, speaking for the first time during the meeting. "The Torvins don't just want to conquer us. They want to test us. They want to see what we're made of. And if we fail—" She paused, not finishing the thought. The implications were too dire. The council agreed on one thing: humanity could not afford to back down. They had spent too long building alliances, peace, and prosperity to let it all crumble now. But how could they face the Torvins in these trials when they didn't even know what kind of tests awaited them? "We have to prepare," one of the military leaders, General Mason, declared. "We may not know what the Torvins want, but we know one thing: humanity doesn't give up. We never have, and we never will." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. The trials were coming, and humanity had no choice but to face them. As the council adjourned, the first signs of humanity's response began to take shape. Dr. Marla Soren and her team would be tasked with analyzing the Torvins' message, trying to uncover any clues about the nature of the challenges. Meanwhile, General Mason would assemble a team of experts, soldiers, engineers, and tacticians, to prepare for whatever lay ahead. For the first time in centuries, there was uncertainty in the air. The peaceful era humanity had known was about to be tested. But one thing was clear: humanity wasn't going to go down without a fight. They might not know what the future held, but they would face it head-on, using everything they had to prove that they were more than just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. The challenge had been issued. The question now was, could humanity rise to meet it? The days passed since the Torvins had sent their challenge. The world buzzed with uncertainty. News outlets around the globe carried stories of the alien race's arrival, and every government, military leader, and scientist scrambled to understand what was happening. The sense of peace that had been the hallmark of humanity's existence for the past 3,000 years began to feel fragile, like an old bridge that might collapse at any moment. In the midst of this chaos, a small group of individuals had been quietly assembling. Dr. Marla Soren, the brilliant scientist, had gathered a team of experts, all working late into the night, trying to decipher the Torvins' message. They had no idea what the trials would be, but they had to prepare for the worst. "Do you think they're serious?" asked Victor Clark, a young analyst who had been working with Dr. Soren for years. He was nervous, and it showed in his voice. "We can't afford to think otherwise," Marla replied. She stood in front of a massive holographic display, analyzing the Torvins' message once more. "They've made their intentions clear. They want to see if we're worthy of the peace we've had. And that means they won't hold back. We need to understand what they're capable of, and what these trials might look like." Victor, who had grown up during a time of peace, could barely imagine a world where humanity had to fight for survival again. He had heard stories of the wars that had plagued Earth centuries ago, but to him, it all seemed so far removed from the reality of his life. "What do you think they'll throw at us?" he asked, almost to himself. "That's the question, isn't it?" Marla said with a sigh. "The message said, 'Prove your worth,' but it didn't say how. We're flying blind here." As Marla spoke, her mind raced. She had worked with alien technologies for years, but this was something entirely new. The Torvins were not like the other races humanity had encountered. They had been quiet for so long, and their sudden arrival spoke volumes. It was as if they had been waiting for the perfect moment to make their move. Meanwhile, in a different part of the world, General Mason was preparing the military for the worst. His job was clear: get humanity ready for whatever the Torvins could throw at them. But even Mason, with his decades of experience in battle, didn't know what they were facing. "Sir, we've already begun assembling the best troops for the trials," said Colonel James, his trusted right-hand officer. "But without any clear information, we're at a disadvantage." Mason nodded grimly. "I know. We've always prepared for war, but this is different. The Torvins don't just want to fight. They want to test us. We need to show them that we can adapt, that we can think outside the box. This isn't just about strength. It's about intelligence, teamwork, and the human spirit." Colonel James glanced at his superior, his face filled with uncertainty. "Do you really think humanity can rise to the challenge?" "I don't think we have a choice," Mason replied. "If the Torvins think we're weak, they'll crush us. But if we show them what we're capable of, they'll have to respect us. This is our chance to prove that humanity is a force to be reckoned with, not just in terms of power, but in every way possible." The general's words resonated with those who were preparing for the trials. The challenge was not just a test of strength, it was a test of what it meant to be human. Would humanity rise to the occasion and prove its worth, or would it be swept away by the might of the Torvins? Across the globe, people were beginning to rally behind the idea that humanity could overcome anything. The Torvins might have underestimated the strength of the human spirit. The global mood began to shift from one of fear to one of determination. If humanity was going to face the trials, it would do so united. But not everyone was convinced. In a small lab on the outskirts of the city, Dr. Ethan Shaw, a renowned physicist, was skeptical. He had spent years studying alien technologies, but the Torvins were unlike any species he had encountered. Their technology was far more advanced than anything humanity had developed, and that's what worried him. "Their technology is light years ahead of ours," Ethan muttered to himself as he examined the Torvins' ships on his computer screen. How can we possibly compete with that? If they're challenging us to prove our worth, they'll have the upper hand in every trial. He sighed deeply, uncertain about the future. Would humanity be able to adapt fast enough to face the unknown, or would the Torvins expose their weaknesses? But even in the face of such uncertainty, there was one thing everyone could agree on. Humanity would not give up without a fight. In the weeks that followed, humanity began preparing for the trials in earnest. Scientists worked tirelessly to decode any patterns in the Torvins' behavior, while military leaders gathered their best teams to train for challenges they could only guess at. The world was bracing itself for a test like no other. The Torvins had set the stage, and humanity was ready to answer. The question was no longer whether they could survive. It was whether they could prove to the universe that they were worthy of the peace they had earned. The trials were coming, and humanity had no choice but to rise to the challenge. The day had arrived. Humanity had spent weeks preparing for the unknown, trying to predict what the Torvins' trials would be. The air was thick with anticipation. Every nation had paused its daily activities, waiting to see how the Torvins would begin their challenge. Earth's leaders, scientists, and military strategists were ready, or at least they thought they were. Dr. Marla Soren sat in the command center, her mind racing as she watched the incoming message from the Torvins. The holographic screen flickered before her, and a deep, resonant voice filled the room. "We begin the trials now. Your first test will be a demonstration of your technological advancement," the Torvins' voice announced, cold and emotionless. "You must prove that you are capable of standing alongside us in the stars. You have 1 hour to launch a spacecraft capable of reaching the nearest star system. Fail, and you will forfeit the trial." The room fell silent. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be easy. Earth had sent spacecraft to explore nearby planets and moons, but a ship capable of reaching another star system in just an hour. That was a whole different level of challenge. "We don't have anything close to that," General Mason said, his voice grim. "Our fastest ships take years to reach even the nearest systems. There's no way we can build something that can meet this challenge in an hour." Marla was already thinking, "We may not have the technology, but we have something they don't. Creativity and determination. We've done the impossible before, and we'll do it again." Her team quickly began working together, brainstorming ideas and examining every possibility. It wasn't just about what Earth had, it was about how they could adapt existing technology to meet this impossible challenge. The scientists and engineers worked furiously, poring over blueprints and old spacecraft designs, looking for ways to speed up their engines and make spacecraft that were more efficient than ever before. Meanwhile, in space, the Torvin ships continued to loom overhead, a reminder of the deadline humanity was facing. The clock was ticking down, and every passing second added more pressure. But Dr. Marla Soren and her team weren't going to let fear control them. They needed a solution, and fast. "We have one chance," Marla said, rallying her team. "We've got to use the technologies we've already developed. We'll focus on maximizing the speed of a smaller craft, something that can launch right now." The idea was simple but risky. Instead of building a massive ship, they decided to use an already built craft and adapt it. The mission was clear: modify it enough so that it could break all speed records. The team worked through the night, combining high-energy fuel systems, advanced ion drives, and other cutting-edge technologies that had been developed over the years. They worked non-stop, sacrificing sleep, food, and comfort to ensure they could meet the deadline. Just as the final seconds ticked away, a small, sleek spacecraft was ready for launch. It was not perfect, but it was their best shot. General Mason, standing at the command center, looked at the engineers and scientists with a mixture of awe and concern. "This is it. We're about to find out if humanity can still rise to the occasion." The spacecraft's engines roared to life as it ascended into the sky, its small frame cutting through the air at an unprecedented speed. Humanity had built something that might just make it to another star system in time. Just barely. As the spacecraft shot toward space, the world watched with bated breath. The craft was fast, but the clock was still ticking. It had to break through Earth's atmosphere, travel the long stretch of space, and reach its target in a matter of minutes. In the control room, Marla's heart raced. "Come on," she whispered to herself, watching the ship's progress on the screen. "Come on." Hours passed as the spacecraft traveled through the vacuum of space, its speed unmatched by anything humanity had built before. The team watched anxiously, knowing that their success or failure was only moments away. And then, just as the final moments approached, the spacecraft made its mark. It reached the boundary of the star system, the closest system in range, just as the final seconds ticked down. The ship hadn't reached another star, but it had reached the edge of the system, and that was enough to prove humanity's ability to push the boundaries of what was possible. The Torvin's voice echoed through the command center once more. "You have passed this trial," it said, "but do not think your success means you have won. The trials are just beginning." Marla, General Mason, and the entire team let out a collective breath. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a win nonetheless. Humanity had proven that it could adapt under pressure and that its ingenuity and creativity could overcome impossible odds. As they celebrated their success, the question lingered in the back of everyone's minds. What would the next trial bring? The Torvins had been watching them closely, and humanity knew they had only just begun to face the full force of what lay ahead. But for now, humanity had taken its first step forward in the trials, showing that it was more than capable of rising to meet the challenges of the universe. The excitement over the first trial's success was still fresh, but a new wave of fear and uncertainty washed over humanity as the Torvins sent a new message. The people on Earth knew that while they had passed the first test, there were still many more to face, and the next trial might be even more difficult. The voice of the Torvins echoed again, a deep, commanding tone that sent shivers through everyone listening. "Your first trial was impressive, but now we challenge you to prove your strength in more than just technology," the voice declared. "The second trial is one of strategy and leadership. You will be tested in your ability to unite, inspire, and command. The trial will take place in a simulated battlefield. You have 3 hours to prepare. Failure will result in your defeat." The room was filled with tension. General Mason, standing before a large screen showing the Torvins' message, exchanged glances with his team. The Torvins were clearly testing humanity in a completely different way this time. They weren't testing just individual strength or knowledge. They were testing the very core of what it meant to be human, the ability to lead and unite others. "This is it," Mason said, clapping his hands together. "We need to think like a team. We've shown that we can build, adapt, and fly into space, but now we need to prove that we can come together under pressure and lead each other toward victory." Dr. Marla Soren nodded in agreement. She knew this trial would not be about technology, but about humanity's strength in collaboration, courage, and creativity. It was a test of unity. If they couldn't work together as a cohesive force, they would fail. The Torvins had sent detailed instructions on how the simulation would work. It would be a war simulation, but with a twist. There were no real weapons involved. The goal was not to destroy the enemy, but to outsmart them. Teams of human leaders would have to make decisions, lead troops, and respond to rapidly changing situations, all while managing their resources and keeping morale high. If they failed to lead their team to success, they would lose the trial. For the next few hours, every country sent their best strategists, military leaders, and civilian experts to work together. The time limit was tight, but the pressure only fueled their drive. General Mason was at the center of the operation, working alongside Dr. Soren and other brilliant minds from around the world. They had to create a strategy that would allow humanity to defeat the Torvins, if only in a simulated battle. As the clock ticked down, a tension-filled silence filled the room. Teams huddled around computers, gathering intelligence, calculating the enemy's moves, and strategizing every step of the simulation. It was not just about military strategy. It was about working with the human heart and mind, understanding when to push, when to hold back, and how to inspire the people around them. Mason looked over at Dr. Soren, who was deep in thought, her brow furrowed. "This isn't going to be easy," he said quietly. Dr. Soren glanced up and smiled. "Nothing worth doing ever is. But we can do this. We've already proven that when humanity comes together, we can overcome the impossible. This is just another challenge." The 3-hour mark came and went. With just minutes left, humanity's leaders had created their final strategy. It was bold, but it was the best plan they could come up with in such a short time. Every decision they made was a calculated risk, but they trusted their instincts and their ability to adapt to whatever the simulation threw at them. The battlefield appeared before them, virtual, but real enough to test their instincts. It was an alien world, full of strange terrain and towering structures. There were obstacles, unpredictable enemies, and every second mattered. The leaders had to make quick decisions, communicate effectively, and be adaptable to the shifting conditions. As the trial began, the tension was unbearable. General Mason led one team. Dr. Soren led another. Together, they guided their units through the battlefield, choosing which paths to take, which enemies to confront, and when to retreat. The Torvins had designed the simulation to test every aspect of leadership, and every move they made had to be perfect. The first few minutes were chaotic. The simulated enemy was relentless, and there was no time to waste. But slowly, the human teams began to find their rhythm. They used their intelligence to outsmart the enemy's attacks, leading their troops with calm and clarity. It was not brute strength that mattered here. It was their ability to think ahead, to predict, and to inspire those around them. Dr. Soren's team managed to outflank the enemy with a clever diversion, while General Mason coordinated a surprise attack from the rear. As they worked together, their teams began to work more smoothly. They communicated, adapted, and kept each other's spirits high. With only minutes left, the human teams made their final move, a risky strike against the enemy's stronghold. The outcome of the trial would depend on this last maneuver. The clock counted down, and the final moments of the battle felt like an eternity. Would humanity be able to claim victory, even in a simulated trial? Could they prove that their leadership, unity, and creativity were enough to defeat the Torvins? When the clock hit 0, the battlefield went silent. Everyone waited in breathless anticipation as the results appeared on the screen. "You have succeeded," the Torvin's voice boomed. "Your leadership and unity have impressed us. You have passed this trial." A wave of relief and pride swept through the human teams. They had done it, not through strength or technology, but through their ability to come together and think as one. As they celebrated their success, they knew that the trials were far from over. The Torvins would continue to test them in ways they couldn't predict, but for now, humanity had proven that it was not just a species of individuals, it was a species that could stand strong together. And that was a power no alien force could ignore. Humanity had passed the first 2 trials, and the excitement was still buzzing throughout Earth. But no one was under any illusion. The next trial would be even more difficult. The Torvins, having seen humanity's ability to adapt and unite, would now push them in ways they couldn't anticipate. The calm before the storm was over. Dr. Marla Soren and General Mason stood in the command center, watching the massive holographic screen. The Torvins had sent a new message, and their tone was colder than ever. "You have proven your strength in technology and leadership," the voice said. "Now we will test your endurance. The 3rd trial is one of survival. You will be sent to an unknown planet. It is harsh, unforgiving, and dangerous. You must survive for 7 days. If you fail, you will be destroyed." The room was silent. Every person in the command center had heard the message, and they all knew what this meant. This trial wasn't about technology, strategy, or leadership. This trial was about humanity's very will to survive. Survival on an alien planet. We don't even know what kind of environment we'll be dealing with, General Mason said, his voice grim. Dr. Soren nodded. This is unlike anything we've faced before. We won't just be fighting for victory. We'll be fighting to stay alive. But we've come this far. We can't let fear control us now. The team spent the next hours preparing for the unknown. Supplies were gathered, and volunteers from around the world volunteered to take part in the survival challenge. It was clear that this would be a test of endurance, resourcefulness, and resilience. Whatever planet they were sent to, they had to be ready for anything. When the time came, each volunteer was suited up in protective gear, and the spacecraft was ready to launch. The mission was simple: land on the alien planet, set up a base, and survive for 7 days. They had no idea what kind of creatures or dangers lurked on the surface. What they did know was that they had one advantage: their ability to work together and use whatever resources the planet had to offer. As the spacecraft left Earth's atmosphere and traveled toward the unknown planet, the atmosphere in the command center grew tense. Dr. Soren and General Mason could do nothing but wait. On their screens, they watched as the spacecraft approached the alien world. It was an eerie sight: vast deserts, strange mountains, and violent storms. The planet was as beautiful as it was terrifying. When the craft finally landed, the volunteers stepped out, the harsh winds of the planet immediately hitting them. The sky was a strange hue of purple, and the ground beneath them was rocky and uneven. There was no time to waste. They had to make a plan and begin their survival effort immediately. The team worked quickly, setting up a base camp with what little equipment they had. They gathered rocks for shelter, tried to find water sources, and used the materials from the ship to make tools. It was clear that the planet was not forgiving. There were strange, terrifying creatures in the distance, and the weather was unpredictable. Each passing hour brought new challenges. One of the first problems they faced was finding food. The landscape was barren, and nothing seemed edible at first glance. The volunteers combed the area, searching for anything that could sustain them. They found strange plants, but the risk of poisoning was high, so they had to be cautious. Every decision they made was life or death. As night fell, the temperature dropped drastically. The air grew cold, and the winds howled across the barren landscape. Inside the shelter, the team huddled together for warmth. There was little comfort on this alien world, but they found strength in each other. Dr. Soren spoke to her team, trying to keep spirits high. "We've only just begun. We have to stay focused. As long as we stick together, we can make it through this. We're survivors." The days on the planet felt like an eternity. Each day brought new challenges: storms that tore through their shelter, creatures that scavenged around their camp, and even strange illnesses from the alien environment. But through it all, they refused to give up. They adapted, they learned from their mistakes, and they kept going. General Mason's leadership was crucial. His ability to remain calm under pressure helped keep the team focused. He organized the group, ensuring that everyone had a job to do, even when things seemed hopeless. Dr. Soren used her scientific knowledge to analyze the plants and animals they encountered, figuring out which were safe to consume and which were dangerous. It wasn't just about surviving. It was about doing so intelligently. On the 5th day, one of the volunteers, Captain Lisa Adams, fell ill after a long exposure to the harsh winds. Her body was weak from dehydration, and the team knew they had to act fast. Dr. Soren and another volunteer worked tirelessly to stabilize her condition, using what they had available to create makeshift medical treatments. As they fought to save her, the Torvin's voice echoed through their communication systems. 5 days down, 2 to go. Do not think you have won. The trial is not over. The harsh words of the Torvins rang in their ears. Humanity had made it this far, but the worst was not yet over. There was still more to survive. But through every challenge, the team found strength in their unity. They faced each obstacle with a determination that couldn't be broken, and each day brought them closer to completing the trial. By the seventh day, they had survived it all. The harsh weather, the dangerous creatures, and the psychological toll of the isolation. They were battered, exhausted, and wounded, but they were still alive. When the final moment arrived, the spacecraft returned to pick them up. The Torvin's voice rang out one last time. "You have proven your ability to survive. But remember, this was just one trial. The challenges will only grow tougher." As they boarded the ship and left the planet behind, the survivors knew that they had done something extraordinary. They had faced an alien world and come out on top. Their will to survive had proven that humanity's greatest strength was not just its mind or its technology. It was its heart. The trials were far from over, but for now, humanity had passed the test. The survivors of the third trial returned to Earth as heroes. Their successful completion of the survival challenge had proven to the Torvins that humanity was not just a species of intellect, but also one of incredible strength, unity, and resilience. The Earth's people celebrated their victory, but Dr. Marla Soren, General Mason, and the others knew the trials were not over. The Torvins had made it clear the next challenge would be the final one. It would determine whether humanity would be allowed to live or be destroyed. The Torvins had warned them that this last trial would be the most difficult. This time, it wouldn't just be about survival. It would be about proving humanity's worth in a real battle. The final test was to be a confrontation, a fight for Earth's survival. As the Torvins' fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system, Dr. Soren and General Mason gathered with their team. The last trial was about to begin, and it was clear that the stakes had never been higher. "We've come this far together," General Mason said, his voice strong but filled with a weight that matched the gravity of the situation. "Now we face the greatest challenge. It's time to show the Torvins what humanity is capable of. We fight not just for our planet, but for every human, every person on this Earth." The team was ready. They had been preparing for this moment for weeks, training and strategizing for the inevitable battle. The Torvins, with their advanced technology and powerful fleet, would be no easy enemy, but humanity had something the aliens didn't: the spirit of survival. And that was something no alien army could ever defeat. In the command center, the tension was palpable. The holographic screens flickered as they monitored the approaching alien ships. Dr. Soren and her team watched intently. "We have a narrow window of time," she said, her tone calm but firm. "We need to strike quickly and decisively." The Torvins were powerful, but humanity had learned to be resourceful. They had reverse-engineered alien technology from previous encounters, and now they had developed new weapons and defenses of their own. The battle would take place in space, and humanity's ships were ready. As the battle began, the sounds of blaring alarms filled the air. The Earth's fleet moved into position, and General Mason gave the order: "Launch all ships, engage the enemy." The vastness of space was the battlefield, and Earth's ships, smaller but more agile than the massive Torvin ships, darted between the stars, evading laser blasts and missile fire. Humanity's fleet wasn't as advanced as the Torvins, but they used their knowledge, their teamwork, and their determination to their advantage. General Mason commanded the ground forces, while Dr. Soren coordinated the tech teams. The battle was intense. Laser blasts streaked across the void, and explosions lit up the darkness as ships from both sides collided. But it wasn't just about the ships. It was about the people in them. The heart of humanity's fleet was its pilots, ordinary people who were fighting with everything they had to defend their home. One of the most critical moments came when a Torvin ship broke through the lines and made a direct approach toward Earth. Its weapons were charged, ready to fire. "We can't let them destroy the planet," Dr. Soren shouted. "We need to take it down now." A small squadron of fighter ships, led by Captain Lisa Adams, darted toward the Torvin ship, closing the distance rapidly. The odds were against them. They had no choice but to get in close, too close to miss. As they neared the massive enemy vessel, Captain Adams made a split-second decision. "Lock on target," she ordered, her voice steady. "Prepare for a full-force strike." With the Torvan ship looming large, the Earth Squadron launched a concentrated attack. Blasts from their weapons hit the ship's vulnerable spots, forcing it to shift and retaliate. But the Earth pilots had anticipated this. They had calculated every move, every strike. With incredible teamwork, they tore through the enemy defenses, and within moments, the Torvan ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. It was a massive victory for humanity. But the battle wasn't over. The Torvan's fleet was still intact, and they had underestimated the resolve of humankind. The aliens began to regroup, but this time, the battle was different. Humanity had proven it was capable of much more than just surviving. It was capable of fighting back. In the command center, Dr. Soren watched the unfolding scene. She knew that humanity's true strength wasn't in its weapons or its technology. It was in its people. Time and time again, humans had been tested, pushed to the edge, and yet they had come together and fought for what mattered most. Earth was their home, and they would protect it at all costs. "General Mason, we got this," Dr. Soren said with a determined smile. "Let's finish this once and for all." With renewed determination, the Earth forces rallied for one final push. It was now or never. As they closed in on the remaining Torvan fleet, the ground forces on Earth prepared to make the final strike. The Torvans would no longer be a threat to humanity. The alien ships fell one by one. The Torvans had underestimated the power of a united Earth. In the end, it was humanity's will to protect its home, its family, and its future that made all the difference. The final battle was over. Humanity had won. As the last of the Torvan ships exploded in space, Dr. Soren stood beside General Mason, looking out at the victorious fleet. The final trial was complete. The aliens had come to challenge humanity, but they were not prepared for what they would face. Humanity had not just survived. It had triumphed. The voice of the Torvans echoed one last time across the communication system. "We have underestimated you, Earthlings. You are worthy of survival. You have passed the final trial." Humanity had done the impossible. They had shown the galaxy that when faced with challenges, no matter how great, humans would rise. And the universe would never forget the day humanity fought back and won. With the Torvan fleet defeated and peace finally restored, Earth stood at a new threshold. For the first time in centuries, humanity could look forward to the future without the constant threat of alien invaders. But while the victory was monumental, the war had changed everyone. People across the planet now knew they could face the most powerful forces in the galaxy and come out victorious. And yet, the real challenge was just beginning. General Mason and Dr. Soren stood at the heart of the newly established United Earth Defense Council, a symbol of Earth's unity and strength after the trials. With the war behind them, the world now had the task of rebuilding, physically, politically, and emotionally. The Torvans may have left, but their presence has left scars on Earth, Dr. Soren remarked, looking out the large window at the bustling city below. The sky was clear, and the hum of progress could be felt in the air. We must prepare for the future. The universe is vast, and the Torvans may not be the only challenge we face. General Mason nodded in agreement. Humanity has proven itself stronger than anyone expected. But this victory doesn't mean we can rest. The war may be over, but the future is unpredictable. We need to stay prepared. Humanity had always been a species of explorers and dreamers. But now, after facing the trials and the alien invasion, they were something more. They were survivors, warriors, and diplomats who had learned to hold their ground and stand tall in the face of overwhelming odds. A meeting had been called by the United Earth Defense Council to discuss the next steps. As world leaders gathered, each nation now united under one banner, Dr. Soren took the stage, her voice steady and full of purpose. "We stand here today, not just as citizens of our countries, but as one united Earth. We have fought together, built together, and we have come out victorious. This victory belongs to every human, Every family, every community across this planet, she said. Her words were met with applause. But she continued, "But we must look forward. The Torvins are gone for now, but what happens if another species challenges us? We cannot afford to be caught unprepared. We need to build a future that guarantees we will never again be at the mercy of others." General Mason stood beside her, his usual stern expression softened by a sense of pride. "We must ensure that Earth's defense is stronger than ever before. It's not just about preparing for war, it's about ensuring peace. We must maintain the unity we've forged, not just among ourselves, but with the stars. We must forge alliances, create new technology, and look to the future." As the meeting continued, plans were put into motion. Earth's focus shifted from survival to exploration, diplomacy, and technological advancement. The defeat of the Torvins had not only proven humanity's strength, but had also shown the galaxy that Earth was no longer a vulnerable, divided planet. It was a force to be reckoned with. Within weeks, the first human delegation was sent to the stars. Dr. Soren and General Mason were at the forefront of this historic journey. They traveled to distant planets to speak with other civilizations, building new alliances and learning from those who had also experienced their own struggles. The humans, once a species seen as fragile and weak, were now recognized for their bravery and resilience. The galaxy took notice of Earth's newfound strength. Other species, once skeptical of humanity's potential, now saw the humans as equals. They were no longer the underdogs but respected members of the galactic community. Back on Earth, the people continued to rebuild, stronger than before. The once divided nations now stood as one unified world, with a common purpose. Schools, hospitals, and cities were rebuilt. New technology was developed, and humanity began to explore the stars, eager to discover new worlds and face new challenges. And yet, despite all the advancements and successes, General Mason and Dr. Soren knew one thing for certain. Humanity had learned an important lesson during the war. The greatest strength was not in their weapons or their technology, but in their unity. It was their ability to come together as one, no matter the odds, that had ensured their victory. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we had given up?" General Mason asked, looking out at the horizon, the sun setting in the distance. Dr. Soren smiled softly, her gaze fixed on the sky. "I think about it every day, but we didn't give up, and that's what makes us human." As the sun dipped below the horizon, a new era began. Earth, once on the brink of destruction, had emerged victorious, proving to the universe that no force could break the spirit of humanity. With peace now in their grasp, they could look forward to a future filled with hope, exploration, and the knowledge that no matter what the galaxy threw their way, Earth would always stand strong. Humanity had won the final trial, and the future was theirs to shape.